right, welcome to episode 9 of the Retro Game Club podcast. I'm Hugh, and this is Rob.
I am not a speedrunner. I am a slow walker. Speed walker, I guess, in games.
A speed walker, perhaps. I'm more of a speed crawl. No, what's the opposite of speed? It'd be a slow crawler. And we got a lot of good stuff lined up. We're going to be talking about MAME cabinets later today, and 2 games that are very, very different.
Very different. And
Very different.
So have you been playing anything or programming anything that's not part of our show?
Yeah, well, because the game that I was playing was on the Sega CD, and it was a fighting game, and we'll talk about it later, I hooked up the 6-button Sega brand arcade joystick that I bought recently. It was like an estate sale. I got it pretty cheap. And that's a really great joystick, and it got me kind of into playing a bunch of other one-on-one fighting games on the Genesis, and then playing a bunch of 32X games, because 32X is a great arcade system. Mm-hmm. A great system for arcade games, and having like a real joystick, I think really enhances the experience. And it's stuff like, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, Mortal Kombat, obviously Star Wars Arcade, but then other stuff like Zaxxon's Mother Base, which it's got Zaxxon in the title, but it's not an arcade game, but it's kind of a. I should save it for whenever we decide to do more obscure games, because I assume most people don't have it, but it is a really, really good 32X game.
I always wondered why Star Wars Arcade was only out for the 32X. It didn't seem... it's from 1983, so why did it take that long?
I don't know. I think it might be on... Well, it's on some like Atari, like ST kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's also on the GameCube demo disc for Star Wars Rebel Strike. You can actually get an emulated emulated version of the arcade game on the demo disc. And these things were like 50 cents at GameStop a couple years ago.
I had no idea that even existed.
Yeah. And if your local GameStop doesn't have it anymore, it might be hard to find. But yeah, it's a preview disc, and it has Star Wars Arcade, 1983, or it says 1982 on here. And yeah, it's just an emulated recreation that you can play on the GameCube.
That's really cool. Wow.
Conveniently here on this shelf where I have some Star Wars games right next to me. What about you? You been playing anything good?
I've been playing with RetroArch a lot, so diving into a lot of old games, and oh man, what? I was playing something on my Switch, and it's eluded me right now. Must not have been that great.
Yeah. I saw that the sequel to Retro City Rampage came out today.
Huh.
I think it's called Shakedown Hawaii, maybe?
Yeah, I was watching a preview of that. I didn't realize there was a sequel. It looks fun.
Well, it's the same developer. I don't know if it's a direct sequel, if maybe spiritual sequel is a better term.
It looks more like GTA 2 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, like I said, same developer, and it's on everything except apparently Xbox One for some reason.
Huh.
Yeah, strange choice. Even on Vita. So if you're releasing a game on Vita but not Xbox One, I don't know if that says more about the Vita or the Xbox One.
I wonder if they use a version of like Unity that wasn't compatible with Xbox One, because you could just kind of cross-compile with PS3, Vita, and PS4. Well, if it's on the Switch, then that wouldn't make sense.
It does make sense. Yeah, I think I saw something about like the developer just didn't have an Xbox development kit.
Sounds like something me and you would do.
Yeah, like they just haven't sent me one, so I haven't. Yeah. All right, you want to dive into some news?
Yeah, first news item of the episode: Speedrunner smashes a computer-assisted Super Mario Bros. Record by a single frame.
Yeah. So I think we've just about reached the theoretical limit of Super Mario Bros. Speedrunning.
Yeah. These guys, it is down to a science. I've watched all the how-tos and the explain how this all works YouTube videos, and it fascinates me how they do this. Especially that they're beating, essentially, a computer. Computer timing.
Well, it's the part that's weird to me is people have been looking at Super Mario Brothers for a long time, trying to come up with ways to optimize it. And Super Mario Brothers, because of like the way you have the ending sequences at the end of each level, like there's a certain I'm putting it like, if you don't land at the end of the level on the right frame, it actually adds to your time, even though you might have like completed the level in fewer frames, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of like, timing considerations in there, but I guess they figured out some way to take 1/30th or 1/60th of a second off.
I don't know if it's 30 or 60.
I don't know off the top of my head if Mario Brothers is how many frames per second Super Mario Brothers is. The NES presumably refreshes the screen at 60 frames per second, but that doesn't necessarily mean Mario is 60 frames per second. So the optimization is on World 8.4 in the turnaround room. So that's where there's a little bit of a hack where Mario gets to a certain point and then you double back and go down a pipe that you went past. And basically they found a way to do that 1 frame faster.
And, they had to do all this and everything else flawlessly. Just incredible. Yeah. And it's not people our age doing this. So it's kids not that, for us it was nostalgic, but it's kids that are just getting into it now that are beating it.
Yeah. But if it's tool assisted, you don't have to be any good at Mario. You don't even have to touch the joystick once.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, what's next? I think my favorite news item of this week, new EARTHWORM gym game is in development with original creative team, and some design has been teased. Mm-hmm. You an EARTHWORM gym fan?
Not really, no.
I like it. I bought it. I bought the SNES one when it was new, and I liked it. I don't know if it was because it was silly or if I actually liked the game. It's not a very forgiving game.
Yeah, that might be why I didn't like it very much. Great soundtrack. I mean, I can't take that away from it. And cool concept. I like games that have a little bit of humor, and I like games that are doing things a little different and experimenting. There's a lot of stuff about EARTHWORM Jim I like, except for the part where I play it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's not a very rewarding game.
Now, it's supposed to be on this upcoming Intellivision Amico.
Exclusively.
Exclusively, yeah. Now, in previous press... Now, I don't know how much of this is true, but I thought in previous press releases, they said the Amico games were all going to be really cheap.
Yeah, it was speculated that this is going to be $8 or $8.99.
Yeah.
And also, most Amico games are going to be exclusives. So, I listen to a lot of gaming podcasts, which is why it's embarrassing that when a listener asked what podcast I listened to, I blanked in a previous episode. But I've heard a lot of people making fun of this story past 2 weeks, and for me, if you don't think the Amico is cool or a good idea, well, A, you could be right, but B, it's not made for you. It's mostly millennial and younger, I hear, making fun of it, but this is for... The Amico takes over where the Wii left off. It's for the family, it's for, the assisted living home, maybe. It's not for someone who wants a PS4 Pro.
Yeah. I'm trying to stay open to the idea. I don't know if I have a real strong opinion. Other than I think the design of the console itself looks like a foot bath. I think they need to change the exterior of the console. Outside of that, I think it could work to a degree. I think it's a sort of a niche, whatever, system.
Because Nintendo left people behind with the Wii U. You don't see Wii U's in places where you saw the Wii,
Yeah, I think the Wii U, I think switching to the pad controls is probably what doomed it, because I don't think that pad is not good for the kind of family games that the Wii was popular for. As a matter of fact, it's not good for any games, really. I can't think of a single Wii U game where I felt like the pad was an improvement over having regular controls.
No, I mean I could see it for like a football game where you want to pick your what play you're gonna do. And the other user can't see it,
Yeah.
kind of like you used your VMU or something for. But other than that,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, it was okay. Like, it was kind of neat in Wind Waker because you could have the map up. And that was about it. I mean, I never used it for Breath of the Wild except for the couple of places where you have to use it.
See, I've only played that on Switch. I have very limited exposure to the Wii U, but the Amico, the controllers I think are unique. They almost look like iPod, the video versions.
Yeah, they look like the old iPod Classic.
When your controller lights up with certain LEDs, so does the system, which you could do some cool effects with that, some cool party games with it. So I think having some old school games on it is a good idea. Is Earthworm Jim a game that'll sell the system? No way. Absolutely not. But it is a game that if you have the system and you're 35 and older, you're probably going to buy this game.
Yeah, probably.
So I think it's cool. Good for them for doing keeping the original crew around and supporting the system. So I'm sure the system's going to be on the show a lot more, and hopefully more than the Atari VCS.
Which I will not talk about again. All right. Game Gear modding. So there's an article out on Nintendo Life talking about Game Gear modding of all things, because they got Nintendo right there in the URL. And I've seen a number of these mods. So this is mods about screen improvements. And do they talk about people that wire in battery packs?
Yes, they do. And how sometimes it's good and sometimes not so hot. Well, actually too hot.
Yeah, right. Right, those are the two drawbacks of the Game Gear. I have a Game Gear, and there are a number of really good games for it. I actually think like the Sonic games on it are pretty good. It has a Master System adapter. Stuff like Mortal Kombat doesn't work on it at all, really, but it's got a pretty good library. It's just, the screen is bad. It's a very dark screen.
That did not last either. That's the main thing that gets replaced.
Yeah, I mean, mine clearly is not running at 100%. And unless you got it plugged into the wall, it's not very portable because the batteries don't last long.
But because of that, because of the fact that it has a ton of great games, that you could actually find these for fair prices in resale shops. There is a huge modding community out there, and you can make yourself a killer system with a killer screen, with decent battery life, and a great library for not too much money. So that's really what I feel that's what this article left me with.
Yeah, I mean, most of the Game Gear games that I've purchased over the years have been pretty cheap. Again, for the reasons we mentioned, it wasn't a real popular system, had some hardware issues, and unlike the Lynx has a very strong collecting community. Mm-hmm. The Game Gear really doesn't. I don't know if I can name a Game Gear game that is typically expensive. I'm sure on eBay there's some game that's really expensive, no doubt. But typically I find games for $2 to $5 at the most.
That's great. And there is an EverDrive for it as well, which I do not have.
There's also a TV tuner, which if you are a city that still has an analog TV station, and I believe we have 2 of them in Chicago still, then you can still watch TV on it.
Wow. Yeah, so great little article, and if you're looking for a not too difficult project with just very little soldering, I highly recommend this. Just buy a used Game Gear, buy the other parts from Amazon.com or other sites, and go crazy, But yeah. What else do we have?
Indie Retro News. So this is a great site. Probably talk about them every episode. They are reviewing a piece of software for the Amiga called GoADF, which is a thing that lets you play ADF images on your Amiga.
ADF is Amiga Disk Filing System?
Disk format.
Disk format, yes.
I'm going with disk format.
I like it, yeah. Sure, we'll get an email.
Yeah, I had an Amiga, but, so the Amiga disks themselves are not particularly easy to copy because you can't put them into a Windows computer and just rip them. You have to have some special stuff going on to do it. And here you can, there's mods to have hard drives attached to your Amiga. I guess some of them technically aren't mods. They had actual hard drives. And this lets you basically take a ADF image and use it like it's an Amiga disk.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And then it has a bunch of other things. So it's got support for up to 4 virtual drives. ADF files to physical disks. So it looks like you could copy an ADF file to an actual disk. So very cool. I think this is like if you're an Amiga collector, I can't imagine you not wanting to have an app like this.
Yeah, I mean, this does some hex editing and stuff like that too, so you could actually do some cracking and stuff like that if you want to, right from ADF files. Yeah, very cool. I really need to get my Amiga emulator working. Next article is yours as well.
Yeah, so this is a ROM hacking project I've been following for a while, and they officially have reached version 1.0. So, and it is called Mario RPG Google Translated, where they took the Japanese script to Mario RPG and retranslated it all through Google Translate.
I didn't hear of this before you sent it to me, and this is hilarious. It's exactly what you think it would be, which makes it funny.
Yeah, it's a lot like playing, like if Mario RPG had been brought to America in 1986. When Nintendo had no localization team. And it's great. I just think it's a very funny project. I like projects that have a sense of humor. I've already mentioned like that about Earthworm Jim, but same for, I don't like ROM hacking projects. I like ROM hacking projects that are serious and, doing something interesting, but I also like ones that are just kind of taking a funny spin on a game.
I think we need to pull one of the translated items, and that is the name of this episode.
Like, I hope I will be legendary.
Yes, that's gotta be it.
That's a good one. We must report immediately the Ministry of Commerce. We are gone, Mario.
Makes no sense at all, and I love it. And I just love that they had to spend this much time. Like, no one's asking for this.
Oh, no one is. Nope, just for fun. I haven't looked into it, but I'm assuming that Mario RPG is a game that someone's developed some ROM hacking tools that make this a little bit easier. Because it's a popular enough game. I guess I could go back to romhacking.net and just search for that, huh? So if you want to hack Super Mario RPG yourself, there is Lazy Shell, a Mario RPG editor, and another one called Super Mario RPG Editor. Lazy Shell seems to be the newer one. Seems to be actively updated. And it has 17 different things in it. So enemies, formations, script, some level editing. This thing is pretty big. Yeah, this is a pretty impressive program. Looks like you could redo most of the game in this editor.
You could pretty much write your own Super Mario Brother RPG or Super Mario RPG.
Yeah, you could do an awful lot with it.
Yeah, I'll be checking that out just to check it out.
Yeah.
Windows XP successfully installed and running on a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, why not? Just in time that like the very, very, very last updates for Windows XP have gone out. You're aware of that hack where you could get Windows XP updates for like years after Microsoft discontinued Windows XP?
Yes.
So for people that hadn't heard of this, Microsoft discontinued Windows XP years ago, and there were no security updates unless it was a specific build of Windows XP that has been used to run cash registers. I don't know how many times you've gone to like a store and seen that they're running like Windows XP or something. So there's like a registry setting you could change that made Windows Update think you were a cash register. And then you continue to get security updates for years. But Microsoft finally just cut those off too.
It's about time. But this article, NintendoSoup.com, I don't think we've been to this site before.
No, I mean, I've been to this. It's a site I occasionally reference. They usually have good stuff. The problem is it's one of those sites where a lot of the content is similar to Nintendo Life. Mm-hmm. So one of them wins when I'm picking links. And Nintendo Soup, though, this is one I don't think I've seen anywhere else.
But this guy, you install Linux first and use the QEMU. It's a hypervisor. Yes, it's a hypervisor. So he uses that to load XP. And he gets 3D pinball running in quotes, at full speed.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, as far as I know, Windows XP doesn't run on any on any RISC-based systems, right?
No, I think the last one that did that was NT40.
Really? NT40 did?
Yeah, MIPS and PowerPC, and I think Alpha. And
yeah, I guess so. I guess that makes sense. So clearly you couldn't actually run XP natively on like an ARM-based system or something that... I don't know what the main CPU of the Switch is. I always thought it was just running like...
It's whatever it's the NVIDIA Tegra, I want to say.
Right, so it's not going to be... I guess maybe the GPUs... I don't know much about the Switch hardware. Sorry for sounding really ignorant here. But I didn't think it had like a 68, like a... an x86 variant.
No, it absolutely doesn't. But, so, yeah, the hypervisor emulates the x86 bytecode, and he has it up and running, and he actually uses it as a workstation for over a week, I think, as of writing this article. So there's pictures of him, like, actually...
Workstation, yes.
Yeah. So, but I guess it's kind of, yeah... I mean, you have a docking station with your Switch dock, and here's monitor, keyboard, mouse, speakers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if there were some Windows games you wanted to play.
And you didn't have VirtualBox and literally anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's cool, but I will never do that to my Switch.
In terms of running stuff on other stuff... id Software. Okay, so years ago, id released the source code to most of their game engines. So Doom, Quake, those sorts of things. And someone recently ported them, not emulated them, but ported them to iOS. And now you can, if you have the original WAD files, the original data files for these games, you can play Doom and Quake, and I think even Quake 2 on iPhone and Apple TV. Again, I'm sure there's some version of Doom, running Chocolate Doom or whatever. But this is a source code port, which I guess Chocolate Doom is too. But sort of a native iOS code base for it. And it's all on GitHub.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I wonder how this runs on the Apple TV. Meaning, can you use different controllers for it, or do you have to use that weird Apple TV controller?
I don't know. I looked at the one here where he's got it hooked up to the iPhone, and he's got a controller hooked up to the iPhone. Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about iPhone.
Yeah, it's just like a USB
Bluetooth controller.
Yeah, Bluetooth. I mean, yeah.
And yeah, I really wish Doom. I keep thinking, like, I have an article I wrote some time ago about like game called something like game ports that should exist. Mm-hmm. And Doom on the Nintendo DS just to me seems like the most obvious game that should exist, because you can have the map and the game. The DS could run original Doom just fine. And I mean, it wouldn't be the hugest hit of all time, but I bet a lot of people would be into that. There is even a Game Boy Advance version of Doom that is remarkably not bad.
There's a video here, how to play Doom on an R4 card, which is a DS EverDrive type card. I'm not going to click on it right now, though. That's a different episode. But I totally agree. And shockingly, that's all of our news.
Yeah.
That's got to be record time.
Yeah. We got to take like a couple weeks off so we can have 2 hours of news again.
No kidding. Yeah, if sometimes we sound, mostly me, sounds delirious during this podcast, it's mostly because I am. Kids and jobs and lack of sleep do that where you think you're ready to record and then you look at your show notes and you could barely read it.
Yeah. So and you're like, Doom, what is that?
Yeah, never heard of it. Never heard of it. But the topic of this episode, MAME and arcade cabinets. So this one was my idea, I think. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so most people just think of MAME as, you know, selecting some ROMs and playing them, maybe setting up your controller. Specifically arcade ROMs, so not your console ROMs. And you could do so much with the MAME config file. So in the MAME config itself, if you have more than one monitor, you could set one monitor to play the game and have the actual arcade bezel on each side of the screen if you have a widescreen monitor. You can have the second monitor have the marquee or the controls and or any cheats that it may know about. Now you have to have these files, and if you Google how to get them, you'll find them. But you can pretty much make a quote-unquote free arcade cabinet out of MAME in just a few parts. So you can even connect JAMA to USB. So JAMA is the interface that a lot of arcade cabinets use to connect to power and video and the controls. And so you can use that adapter right to, you know, your Raspberry Pi or your x86 desktop and put that inside of an arcade cabinet. Mm-hmm. And
so you're talking like a real arcade cabinet, like you're
exactly
basically buying a machine and gutting it.
Exactly. If you go to Etsy and just search for a MAME arcade cabinet, there are pages of people willing to send you do-it-yourself arcade cabinets without the electronics, just the wood that you glue or nail together, or sometimes it's already put together.
Yeah, I'm looking at a few right now. That's the thing that's stopping me from doing a project like this because I don't know how to use a saw. I mean, I minimally know how to use a saw. I could not make a precision cut and make something that looked nice. But
if you buy the parts from Etsy and you don't have to do much to that, it's almost a no-brainer. If you want something, it's available to you. So,
yeah.
One thing, you know, I've talked about before, I have some arcade cabinets. One thing I'm slowly building right now, I'm just kind of designing, is a cabinet that the marquee, and the marquee is, you know, the display that has the game name above the monitor, where that's an LCD screen, so as I choose different games, it loads up that marquee up there. You know, there's some people on YouTube that have done it, not many actually, but a few, and it just looks really slick. And then you can have a third monitor on the side, or just really small between the controls, where you could display, you know, if you load Street Fighter 2, you could display every character's move set. So you're not, you know, Googling stuff, it's already right there. Yeah, there's no secret between friends. You all know all the special moves.
Mm-hmm.
There are, you know, on Amazon or many other sites, packages you could buy that have the actual Sanwa, which is the best joysticks from arcade cabinets that connect right into USB. You know, it's just an adapter. And so there's no... If you don't want to have old school hardware, you don't have to, and you can have very close to native gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, MAME cabinet is like one of those. It's one of those projects I would really like to do, but there's a lot of barriers to it. Mostly the cabinet part for me, which is why I think like if you can get the cabinet somewhere, whether it's an abandoned unit or whatever, that's a big step. But what do you do about like controllers? You know, in terms of like wiring controllers into this thing.
So there's packages you could buy that are just adapters. So it's pretty much each button or each direction in a joystick is just making a connection between that button and a ground. And so these adapters just translate that to USB. And it's remarkably simple to set up. Very little and sometimes no soldering. A few notes I wanted to put as starter tips. Mistakes I have made. Choose, if you're going to do this, don't put every single game you have on it. Some games are vertical, some games are horizontal screen. So an example of a vertical would be, Centipede or Galaga or Donkey Kong. Horizontal would be, your TV. So make sure you're only using vertical or horizontal. Maybe make like your best 20 vertical games or horizontal games. Or pick a publisher. Your favorite Capcom games or every Street Fighter game. The reason I say that is because no one's going to scroll through hundreds of games. But if you have 10 to 30, that's more manageable.
Yeah, and that was a problem I had like when I was playing around with RetroPie, putting way too many games on it.
Then you don't know what to play.
Yeah, you're scrolling through pages of kind of garbage games. It's like, oh, Mary-Kate and Ashley Day Planner. You're skipping past all that stuff. I do want to review that one day, though. I have a physical copy of that game, by the way. No, I'm serious. And I think it would be fun for like a week to try carrying that around the office. Like an original Game Boy or Game Boy Color with the Mary-Kate and Ashley Day Planner and just trying to use that to like plan out my week and meetings and stuff.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how people at the office are going to know I put in my 2-week notice.
Yeah, when you completely check out like that. But that's something I try to do where I've talked about this before, terabytes of ROMs. But my main set is my nostalgia set. These are the games I liked playing back then. They're the games I keep wanting to go back to. I also have games I've always wanted to play. And then, when me and you talk about a game or me and another buddy talk about a game that I haven't heard of, then I'll throw it in there, One thing you want to think about are your controls. Personally, I think it looks not great when you have 2 sticks, 12 buttons, 2 trackballs. Just stick with one type of game. If you want your dual stick games, like your Smash TV, Cloak and Dagger, and stuff like that, make a cab for that. If you want a trackball cab, do that. Now, this is just what I would do. I feel like all-in-one solutions just never work perfect. And yeah, so in closing out with that, dive into the MAME config. It's the heart of MAME, and you can just do so much with it. And that's really all I have to say about that. So you don't think you're ever going to build your own cab?
Noddy, I really, I see these at Midwest Gaming Classic every year. The tabletop cabinets. So it's like something you put on a desk or your bar or island or whatever. And I think those are pretty cool. Like, I could kind of see myself doing one of those more than a stand-up machine. I think I'm more likely... I talked about this company, Project 816, a while ago. Or is that what they're called? It's a new bar arcade opening up in Chicago, where the premise is that they're going to have arcade machines that play consoles. Does that make sense? So it's a stand-up arcade game, but underneath it is a Super Nintendo. And I can see myself, I'd actually kind of might enjoy one of those more. I'm not sure. Than a MAME cabinet, but like a bar-style MAME cabinet, I would definitely do.
A bar top, yeah.
Yeah, bar. If someone made a kit that was like, here's all the pieces, except you have to buy your own Raspberry Pi or something. But like joystick built in, and again, like the wood and monitor part, because I don't know how to do any of that.
One thing I would like to try, and listeners, email if you have or know of people who have done this. I've already said this a few times. I love messing with the multi-monitor part of MAME. It'd be cool to have MAME on a DS and have your second screen on the DS be the marquee plus the controls or some cheat codes, just so you have it right there. It's more than powerful enough to power most of these games. Yeah, that'd be a fun little hack-a-day project. But yeah, should we dive into Game Club?
Yes, yeah. I was thinking about your pick and my experiences with it.
Oh, so want to start with yours this time?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I picked Eternal Champions, although I guess really Eternal Champions CD is what I played more in the past week. And it's been a long time since I played that game. But I played it with my youngest kid, which is not bad parenting because it's really hard to pull off the equivalent fatality moves in it. So, like, Eternal Champions is a one-on-one fighter that mechanically is kind of a Street Fighter ripoff. Like, a lot of the characters have moves that are similar to Street Fighter characters. A couple of them, Ramses is basically Guile. Like exact same moveset, same kind of stuff. But instead of going like the fighter's history route and really just blatantly ripping off the characters, these are all like, bad people from different periods of time, including like the future and places like Atlantis and so on, that through some kind of weird time portal are fighting each other, often in their own like home cities. And it's like I said, mechanically, it's just Street Fighter 2. It's a really fun fighting game. I mean, it's in terms of Genesis games, it's arguably better than the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat, and pretty much, close to on par with the first Street Fighter game on the Genesis. What was it? They called it Championship Edition on there, and maybe not quite as good as Super Street Fighter 2, but it's close. It's a really well put together game. And then the Sega CD version adds some extra content. And they start to make it into like a Mortal Kombat game a little bit because they add fatalities. But they're not like Mortal Kombat where you defeat your opponent and then you execute a fatality. A lot of them are scene-based, like you're using some item in the scene you're fighting in. And you don't do it when your opponent is already defeated. You do it when they're at like 2/3 damage or more. And the opponent has to be in the right place, and you have to be in the right place, and you got to know the special move and so on. So it's a little bit trickier, and of course you can win a fight more quickly if you know how to do this.
So wait, there aren't fatalities in the non-CD version?
Yeah, I'm gonna plead ignorance for a moment. Okay. I thought that was an addition in the CD version.
I have no idea. I have no clue.
I thought for sure that was an addition. Yeah, so I guess I should clarify this. That concept exists in the original game. Just the CD version adds new stages, new finishing moves, and a bunch of hitting characters. So, like in Mortal Kombat, there's Smoke and Jade and whatnot. In Eternal Champions, they add 5 or 6 hitting characters like that. Some of them are really, really hard to get. I had to look at an FAQ to figure out how to unlock them all. Now, I played this a bunch when it was new. And then, really, it's probably been 15 or 20 years since I played it. So it was kind of fun to play it. Me and my kid were pretty well evenly matched because I hadn't played the game in a long time. I had an advantage only in that it's kind of like playing Street Fighter 2. So if you know Street Fighter 2, you'll be able to pick up this game very, very quickly. So yeah, in the CD version, there is a sudden death finisher. So that's something that's new. Yeah, that's Eternal Champions. I don't know which of these you've played.
So I played both. I focused on the Genesis version just because it seemed to be working better for me. I had some computer issues over the week, so whatever I got working was kind of what I played. I didn't not like it. It just didn't grab me. I didn't play it back in the day. That may be the reason. I don't know if I agree that it was up there with the other games you listed, like the Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat for Genesis. It felt a bit... Maybe I just wasn't used to the controls. Not the actual controls, just the feel of it. It's the way it moved. Because it just kept... I was losing so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched some videos on it, and people were... perfecting the computer. I did some reading on it. It got very polarizing reviews. So it seemed like us either love it or don't. Yeah. But it sold really well. Right now you could find copies for, under $40 for CD. Let's see about Genesis.
I think that's a pretty common game. So you've got to. I played the CD version on actual hardware, and it plays very smoothly. I don't know how your mileage will vary trying to play that on an emulator.
I think smooth isn't the right word. The game was playing correctly. It just didn't click with me, the way it moved. It's hard to explain. I could see if I only had a few games around and playing this for a long time, really getting sucked into it, but that just didn't happen to me, But I had never played it before, and I was glad I did. And I see, Genesis versions, you could buy it now for under $6.
Yeah.
So that's a great price for this. I mean, well worth it.
Yeah, and I closed the article, so I don't know offhand if it's on. It's got to be on some of these Sega collections, right? I mean, it was a Sega branded game. So
I know it was on the Wii Virtual Store, but that's...
Yeah, now the fun thing is going back to Game Gear, cheap Game Gear games, there's a spin-off game called Chicago Syndicate for Game Gear. I have that. It stars one of the characters from Eternal Champions.
Really?
Yeah, and then there's a semi-obscure Genesis game called Experts. X-Perts. That's a beat-em-up game, or more like a side-scrolling. I'll go beat-em-up game that stars characters from Eternal Champions. So
What's
it's like,
called?
Sub-Zero mythology or whatever that was called.
Huh.
But that, I believe, is a very expensive and rare game.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it. But
yeah, it was I remember it was a cardboard box release, so... you know what? It's cheaper than I expected. I see people selling it for under $10 on eBay. So I did not expect
that. Not bad. But yeah.
Although this one has the name Lewis written across the front in marker. But it's under $10 if you want it. All right, so you want to talk about Space Quest 4?
Yeah. So this is a game that I bought new when it was new. I remember very vividly because I bought it with Civilization 1, and it was over Christmas break, and I did not leave my computer desk. And this is also a very polarizing game. I think it's a love it or hate it game. I love it. I love the old point and clicks. So it is obviously the fourth in the Space Quest series. You play Roger Wilco, and It has the classic Space Quest humor, except you're not typing now. You know, you use your mouse and you can either point or look or touch or whatever, walk to, pick up. And for me, let me start that over. It's funny because you're never in Space Quest 4. You start in Space Quest 12, then you go to 3, 10, 1, 12, 10, 12. Yeah, and you end in 12 again. I thought that was really funny. It came out just a little bit after Back to the Future 2, so I wonder if that had any influence on it. And they do a lot of old Sierra Online things, like you enter a time machine that has these codes, and you have to make sure to write down every single code. And if you didn't, because you have to make sure to, when you enter it the first time, to write the code down that's already in there when you get in. And then it's almost to the end of the game when you need that. And if you didn't do that, you pretty much have to start it over again. And you've probably taught your computer to fly by that point. But I don't know why. I just love that about Sierra games, how unforgiving they are, and how they... You know, you couldn't afford many games back then, so they tried to make it so these games last, and that's how they did it. You know, whether that's good or bad. Yeah, I probably play through this game every few years, and it probably wasn't fair for me because I had literally just beaten it again when I decided it was going to be a Game Club game. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this one?
So, yeah, playing it sort of reminded me why I like LucasArts adventure games better than Sierra adventure games. For the reasons you brought up. Like, I must have died 20 or 30 times just trying to get out of the first area.
Because that guy sees you.
A guy sees you, or one time I think I just walked and I fell over dead. I don't even know how. I never saw what killed me one of the times. So, I mean, King's Quest V is like the only Sierra game I ever finished, and that was really out of willpower. I really enjoy the setting of King's Quest V. It's one of my favorite adventure games, so I managed to convince myself to finish it. But generally, I don't finish Sierra adventure games because I get frustrated with them, and I definitely got frustrated here. And you know, I looked at the walkthrough, and the walkthrough is actually not very long.
It's one of those where if you know what you're doing, you could just power through it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like if you know the exact path, and it's like playing through Shadowgate or something, right? Like, it'll take you 20 hours to figure out the right way through the game, and then you can get through the whole thing in 30 minutes or less.
But so the part you kept dying in there, that's the part that's kind of like it happens in King's Quest 1 and 3, and 3 specifically, where there's a few screens where you just have to stay really close to the side of the screen, because if someone pops out, you got to quickly just get to just get out of that screen and you're safe.
Yeah.
And that's how they start this game, which is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, they started brutally. But at that point, you know, this isn't like a demo or trial level, like you've already paid for the game. Now, I played the archive.org version, which was kind of a mistake because the loading times are very accurate. Say, like, you are waiting a long time for this game to start on archive.org. And I'm assuming because it's trying to emulate a bunch of stuff in JavaScript.
Yeah. One thing I would like to touch on, Sierra games are on this era. Now, I know King's Quest V is your at least one of your favorite Sierra Online games. King's Quest 6 is my favorite Sierra Online game. But really, King's Quest 4 through Space Quest 5, so that includes King's Quest 6, the background artwork in those games, I mean, you could just frame and put on a wall. They're gorgeous.
It does look great. I definitely can't take that away from it. Now, I'm looking around. This is not a particularly cheap game unless you want to get like a jewel case only release.
Well, if you go on Steam, so if you don't want the original,
Yeah.
if you want the package, you could get them all for, I think, under $20.
Yeah, you're right. Right. I mean, you can get a jewel case version of the game for as low as, it looks like $3, which is, they had like budget. I mean, I remember these budget re-release packages of it. So that goes as low as $3, but like original floppy versions are $50.
For 5 1/4, $300.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah, versions 4, Space Quest 4, 5, and 6 for Windows XP through 10, $18. Not bad. And it's a big box game, so you get all that beautiful artwork.
Now that I know that, like I have to go next time I see one of these for like $1 at a yard sale. I'll have to pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows? I
wonder
might
what, like,
rebuy it from you.
Yeah, unfortunately, my floppy version of King's Quest V is not worth nearly as much.
That is such a good game. That will be a game club game sometime.
Yeah, we should do King's Quest V.
But not the NES version, but that's a whole other episode.
I actually found that's not a bad port. I mean, it doesn't look as good, but I think... we can save it for later. I thought it was alright.
And we do have some listener feedback for our previous Game Club games. Joe chimes in, and he played Blaster and Captain America and the Avengers. And I think he felt the same way about Blaster we did. It's pretty fun for a minute. It's really trippy, really bright, lots of stuff flying at you, but... he just didn't really get into it. He said it really needed the arcade flight controls. Flight stick controls. And yes, I agree. Back in the day, he overlooked Captain America. And he always preferred Konami's X-Men over it, even though X-Men was pretty much Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reskinned. Which is true. And he mentions that it did have 2 more players. You have the 6-player version, which that is an incredible cabinet. One of those will never fit in my house. But he actually thinks the Avengers game plays better. Now, I think he's specifically talking about the arcade version, which is the best version. And in Avengers, there's more moves, including some special attacks. You could use as much as you want, and there's also the flying shoot-'em-up segments, which kind of break up the I can't say that word.
Monotony.
Thank you. And all in all, it's better than the Konami game. And thank you for that email, and I think I agree literally everything you wrote.
Zach writes us to talk about 5 1/4-inch floppy USB drives. Or options for recreating it. And, of course, he mentions applesauce, and, of course, he notes that we talked about that. And, of course, as he brings up, the downside of that is that it's really expensive. So it's $225 for the cheapest unit and $285 for the deluxe version. And it's really the best solution out there if you really want to preserve old floppy disks. And I get that. Like, I think that's an option.
The Wazaday.
Yeah. And he talks about another gizmo that I'm sort of vaguely aware of, but haven't looked into. A multi-platform USB to floppy controller from a company called Device Side Data. So you need to have the actual drive yourself, but it looks like it's a USB 5 1/4-inch floppy controller, as they say. So even if you don't have a floppy controller, it's fine, because this essentially, you're taking the drive, you have to open up the drive and then connect this cable, and it's read-only, which I guess is okay. I mean, what are the chances you're going to write something? I mean, I guess there are good chances. Like if you have a bunch of backups or copies of games and you want to play them on original hardware, you would probably want to have the ability to write the discs too. Not me. I just want to copy old games for personal use. And it's got software for everything. You can run it on Mac, Linux, and Windows, and it currently supports disk images of Apple DOS, Atari 810, Vista Graphics, Commodore, Kpro, MS-DOS, KPro CPM2, VersaDOS, North Star, Tandy Color Computer, TI-99. Wow. So that's a pretty nice, what are they, how do you buy one of these things? I might just buy this right now. If I can figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I don't see a buy now button.
I don't, and their site is not HTTPS, so I don't know if I want to buy from them anyways. Where to buy? Order online with a credit card. Well, let's see if I click on that. Oh yeah, they have a site you can order it from that is not HTTPS. And on this site that's not HTTPS, you can get it for $55.25.
You must be able to get it on eBay or something.
Jeez, I don't know. Site has no certificate. Anything you enter could be seen by hackers. So
well,
order this over
you might be
Tor
sending it directly to hackers.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, hackers already have your credit card number.
Yeah.
Let's just be blunt here. Was the checkout link do something? Yeah. I'm assuming this just emails your credit card number to the dude that makes it.
Hey, why not?
Why not?
It is weird though that there's no like straight up USB 5 1/4 drive, because you could go to Amazon right now, type in USB 3.5 drive, and you could find one for $15.95.
Oh, I have two of them. I have one that I bought years ago just for the purpose of backing up discs, and then this is a yard sale find. Someone had it must have been for an iMac, because it has that iMac transparent plastic case around it and it looks like an Apple device. Bought one of those for, literally $1. So I have a backup one. So I have no problem copying, 3.5-inch discs.
Did you see there's a video, I think it came out last year before. There's a guy that plugged one of those drives into his Android phone and played Doom off it. So they actually will work on your Android phone. You can use a 3.5-inch drive on a 2018 or 2019 Android phone. It is one of my favorite videos ever.
All right, so if you want to email us, email at retrogameclub.net. Is that correct?
That is correct. Email at retrogameclub.net. And please do email us about anything, about any of our news items, about the Game Club games. If there's anything, any suggestions about the show that you have, any news we may have missed. Please, if it's retro gaming or emulation or programming games related, we are interested. And we are not very picky.
Yes, I am, but I'm especially interested in your feedback on our upcoming games. So again, email at retrogameclub.net. And what are our next games?
So I picked Imperium for the SNES, and here's why. I was resetting up Launchbox, and I wanted to test one game from each system. And I was just randomly scrolling through games, and Launchbox plays the audio from the game as you scroll over it. And this game had pretty cool audio that I've never heard of it or played it before. And I tried it out, and it's really fun. So thank you, Launchbox, for that happy accident. Imperium. Imperium for the SNES. And it is, to my knowledge, not for any other system. And what is yours?
Well, first of all, someone that uses the same IP address as me, so another Comcast customer, just made an edit to Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is like, hi, I have a comment about the comment you just made, the edit you just made. And it's not me. So someone from the same IP address, Comcast IP address, made an edit to the entry about Smith River, California. All right, real quick, Imperium, I gotta double check, but I think this was a game when I was working at the game store that, for whatever reason, got marked down to like $1. It was like brand new. We had 40 or 50 copies of this game that they sent to every store, and it was between $1 and $5. So it must have been like some massive commercial flop, and they dumped them all on our stores.
Oh, I believe I have never heard of this game in my life.
Yeah, but when I see the box art, like this whole thing comes back to me of opening this box filled with this shooter no one ever heard of, and it had price stickers for, it honestly might have been $1. Like, just get rid of this game, please. I'm gonna go with PacLand, any version.
That's great. I love it. Two very, very different games.
PacLand, does it hold up? That's kind of my thing here. I think from going back and like watching old Star Arcades and just kind of I've been doing a lot of arcade stuff lately, and past 6 or 7 months. Wait, what is it? May? Past 5 months. I've really been on a big kick of arcade home conversions, like trying out different arcade to home conversions. And PacLand is one of them. It doesn't have a lot of home versions, but it definitely has a PC Engine TurboGrafx one, which I have a physical copy of. So
yep,
that's probably what I will play unless I build a MAME cabinet in the next week.
Yeah, unlikely, but Etsy exists.
Yes. It's on also Famicom, but not NES, if I remember correctly.
Really? Huh. Well, if you play those games or any game you want to talk about, email at retrogameclub.net. And we are on Facebook. Well, our show is on Facebook. We as humans aren't much. But please, it would really help. We are not on Patreon. If you gave us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. I don't think you can review on Android, but if you can, please do. And that is all.
Yeah, so thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.